The future belongs to those who dare, those who do extra. Hi, I'm Mark Croskery, and welcome to Business Dev Extra, the program that looks beyond dollars and cents to the movers and shakers in business and the capital markets. Today's guest has over 34 years of experience in information technology and is a regular speaker on technology, cybersecurity, and digital transformation. He is a Wolmer's old boy. He holds a diploma in industrial education with a specialization in electrical technology from UTECH and a master's in business administration, MBA from Barry University. He has held a number of managerial positions during his career and serves on several public sector boards and committees. He's a member of the PSOJ and is currently the chairman of its Innovation and Digital Transformation Committee. Joining us today is Christopher Reckord, CEO of Ttech Limited. Chris, welcome to Business Dev Extra.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
It's great having you, man.
Finally, I'm here.
And I like to see the branded shirt.
Oh, Lord, always,
branded.
Everywhere I go.
So, Chris, you're CEO of Ttech, publicly traded company, director, mover shaker, the only IT outsource company publicly traded in Jamaica.
Well, we have had a lot more organizations join that fray now. When we started doing it 15 and a half years ago, we were the only one that was a pure play managed service provider. At the time, we even didn't use that term. It was just, IT outsourcing. Here's an organization that just focused on helping customers manage their infrastructure while the customers focus on the business.
And Chris, when you say pure play, right? I mean, kind of like just jump into that a little bit. Like,
okay.
What do you mean by pure play kind of IT outsource provider? Like, what does the pure play part mean?
So in the IT industry, especially on the reseller market, us organizations that help organizations, help companies, with their IT, you have value-added resellers. In other words, people that buy products and put on a markup and resell. Then there is systems integrators, people that sell products and then help you to install it in the organization. And then there's an industry component called an MSP, managed service provider. A pure play managed service provider is an organization that over 80% of its revenues comes from services, right? So in the first 10 years of inception for Ttech, we delivered only pure services. We didn't sell anything. Well, there was a point in time when a customer of ours asked us to help them with a PBX implementation.
Yes.
And so that's the first product that we actually added to the line. I wasn't even with the organization then.
So really just services.
Services,
no like hardware,
services,
nothing like that.
Which is why I use the term often pure play. Now, I need to stop using the term pure play because so many of our customers have asked us to add more products, and so we have had to add more products.
So kind of back in the day, the customer would have to go somewhere, buy their hardware, and then maybe you could assist, but you weren't selling really the hardware side of the business.
Correct. So in the early beginning, when the company was founded by Teddy Alexander, former CIO for Grace Kennedy and GK executive, his vision was, look, I am here to help folks maximize the value in their IT. And so within an organization, IT is complicated. IT is very complex. Sadly, there's a lot of vendors out there with their marketing that try to simplify it and oversimplify it, and everybody thinks that they can do it. But as the organization gets more complex, it requires more technology support. And so his vision was quite simple. Look, I need to create an organization that I help these people with this IT component, right? So the IT component is the entire infrastructure, is the networking, is the cables, is the servers, is all of this stuff. So the whole, when I simplify it to people, look, we become your IT department, so you don't have to hire one, right? Or if you happen to have an IT guy, a one person, we know that's not enough. So we have the rest of the expertise. We have the Microsoft operating system folks, virtualization folks, the server folks, the networking people, and of course, security.
So you really wanted to, Teddy and yourself come up with like an IT advisory kind of service, like a full-blown advisory service.
When Teddy and I started talking about this very early on the stage, even before I joined the organization, that's what his whole thing was, because he had experienced it in North America and said, look, I want this advisory service, but not just advisory for consulting, also some doing.
So kind of like not just a help desk, but the whole shebang.
Correct.
Correct. And what's Teddy's role in the company today?
Teddy's the executive chair.
He's executive chair,
yes.
and you're the CEO.
Chief Executive Officer. Yes.
Okay. And if we dial it back, Chris, kind of like your whole career. Yes, you're in IT today, but like where did you kind of get started off? You did a university, Barry University. But where did you kind of get started off? What was your first job like?
I had seen your episode with Taylor, and I smiled and laughed because I had the exact same scenario in my first. I was a teacher.
Okay.
Right? So my friends used to laugh and joke and call me professor.
So this gave you patience in life?
Well, there was a component of that, definitely.
Okay.
So I went to UTECH, was in the department around education, and so I naturally came out to say, I like this thing. I like teaching, I like explaining, so I started out life as a teacher. I was a teacher at a secondary school in Kingston. I lived in Mona Heights, and Mona Secondary was recently built. And so I applied. It was close to home. I walked to the job, and I went home for lunch. So it worked at the time.
What was the kind of subject matter, or what were you?
Electrical installation, electrical implementation. Okay. And so I taught the kids around just electrical, impulses, connectivity.
And would you say, is that still a subject today, or is it just the course matter has changed over time?
I think it's still a subject today. Based upon what I see my daughter learning with IT, it's absolute basics. So I think electrical, mechanical, woodwork, all those things are still subjects in technical schools.
Okay. And how would you say that has, if we fast forward a bit, but how would you say that has kind of helped your career today, like that kind of, whether it was a year, 2 years in teaching, would you say it has benefited you?
Well, I think lesson planning and planning everything that you're going to say, planning all the questions, planning all the various answers, and planning to manage behavior definitely has contributed somehow, and it's become embedded in the system. Yeah. So much so that I tell folks, look, I don't think I'm ever going to retire because there's lots and lots of interest, and I have friends who joke with me, oh, Chris, you're so involved in so many things. You used to be racing cars, you used to be DJing, you're a teacher, all this kind of stuff. Yeah. And so I jokingly say, I'm going to end up teaching again. So, when this is over and we have delivered the value and maybe somebody acquires us or whatever it may be, or we just take it to the next level and continue growing, I will, meander off into the pasture to teach and then, wither away in some clues. Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
And post-teaching, so you did a stint there. Yes. I mean, where did you kind of pivot after that? Or?
So what happened was this. So whilst teaching was in the day, there was always this night job that I had. Okay. And, while I was still in school, I started this whole DJing thing. I'd lived in Mona Heights, and a lot of my friends were sound system DJs, so I kind of got involved in that. Really, really loved it because, again, it's technology is a lot of...
And this was for extra income?
Well, this was for fun initially. For fun. Okay. Right? This was just because you liked it, and, I would help out some of my friends who they were getting paid. I didn't understand the money part. I mean, I was still in high school, and then when I realized that, hold on, you can actually get some money out of this thing. So, my day job was teaching, the night job was sound system DJ. And then, there's a part where all of a sudden, the night job started getting more paid than the day job. You kind of start to think about the teaching. And I say, I'm not too sure how far this can take me. I have dreams and visions and all kind of aspirations. Let me see what I can do. And I saw this job advertised in the newspaper for a technician, a computer technician. And I'm like, all right, computers have electronics in there. I should be able to do something. And I applied to the job, and I went for the interview, and I was successful in the interview, and I was hired. So that's how I got into IT.
What company was that at the time, though? That was...
I don't think the company exists anymore. It was a company by the name of Computer Business Systems.
Okay, and that was in Jamaica?
In Jamaica. It was up in Waterworks. So literally I had to take 3 buses to work. Okay. Sometimes 2, sometimes 3, depends on what you catch when you reach... when I reach Liga half a tree.
And would you say that's where kind of your passion for this whole, whether you call it IT or kind of computer-based technology,
tech, digital,
that's where it really
exactly
going?
Exactly.
Okay.
You went in there and massive learning. I have to give big respect to Garth King and Robert Richards. Robert was a guy who interviewed me and hired me and gave me all the foundation of everything I know technology-wise. And that's when you really learn, because we didn't have any courses or anything. All the courses were around programming and around computer science and that kind of stuff. We're out there building out some of the first networks in Jamaica. The type of cabling that were used was archaic now. Nobody uses that stuff anymore. StarNet and ArcNet and Token Ring and all that kind of stuff. You had to learn how to crimp cables the right way. It was a university. Yes. And the interesting thing, one of the things I'd mentioned too.
And how many years did you spend during that phase, or with
a very short stint? It was a short stint, but it was so much in the short years, about 2 years, 2.5 years. Because in the midst of all of that, I actually went to live a little bit in Grenada for about 8 or so months, because the owner of this company, he and a partner, had a business down in Grenada, and I was asked if I would like to go help them down there. So went to Grenada, spent 6 weeks, and then back a week and 2, went back again, spent 6 weeks, and I did that 3 times. So spent almost an entire year down there. So it's, again, being thrusted into management for the first time and trying to figure out, okay, leading a team, leading people.
So you're really getting into the mix of things, yeah. I'm
doing everything. That's one thing when you're a small organization, you do everything.
We're going to come right back to it. Really interesting story, Chris. We're going to get right back to you. We take our first break on Business Live Extra. More when we return. Welcome back to Business Live Extra. Ttech Limited is Jamaica's only pure-play IT outsourced and managed services provider. Ttech was founded in 2006 and celebrated their 15th anniversary December of last year, 2021. Ttech is the first Jamaican information technology company to be listed on the junior market of the Jamaica Stock Exchange in 2016. Ttech simplifies the management of it by making an approach that maximizes the value of technology in an organization while minimizing costs. In 2019, Ttech was ranked among the world's top elites in IT at the 12th annual staging of the Channel Future Managed Service Provider MSP 501 rankings. The company was named the only Jamaican-based awardee and one of 2 in the Caribbean and Latin America. In 2020, Ttech was awarded the Jamaica Stock Exchange Best Practices Award for the best website for junior market companies. Here to tell us more is Christopher Reckord, CEO of Ttech Limited. Chris, welcome back to Business Live Extra.
Grateful to be here.
Before we jump into a lot of great corporate governance moves, a lot of awards, congratulations.
Thank you.
So computer business systems, you keep moving on. You did some other things, let's say overseas, locally. But Ttech now, along that kind of career path, got founded in 2006.
Right.
And how did that whole kind of passion transform into the brainchild of Ttech? And just walk us through, how did the brand come up? Why Ttech, and just even the logo, the name, and was it a joint brainchild? Was it your brainchild? But, what is Ttech?
Not my brainchild. Teddy Alexander, Edward Alexander, founder of Ttech, is the executive chairman still. And there was a big piece in there where I was at a company called Innovative Systems.
Yes.
So Innovative Systems was there then, 15 or so years went by, and I went to work in Miami, a company called Adjoin Consulting.
Okay.
Then did that for a bunch of years, and then eventually came back to Jamaica, started another organization called Innovative Corporate. So split Innovative Systems into the corporate organization, which was run by myself and Neil Abrams, my partner at the time.
And during kind of that phase, that timeline, in those companies, Chris, you're always whether it was like a shareholder, a director.
Moving up the line.
You're moving up. You're
moving up.
Hustling,
learning about
it done.
I tell everybody I'm an accidental entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
Because somehow in the midst of it, when I was at Innovative Systems, one of the shareholders came to me and said, look, if you really do good for this year, I'm going to give you shares. I didn't even know what his shares were, right?
Yeah.
So, went and learned and all that kind of stuff, which is kind of eventually went and did MBA. But in doing all of that, Teddy Alexander was always my customer.
Okay.
The relationship is kind of why I brought it back to that story first, Knew Teddy from then.
And at that point, Chris, what did you view kind of, when you look back at it, the past decade or two, what did you view your core strength as? Was it like operational, or to your point, you were bringing in customers, bringing in revenue, which is very valuable skill set. But did you view it as, which one of the two?
Continuously changing. I'm a lifelong learner. Mm-hmm. I'm continuously learning. I read anywhere between 30 to 50 books a year on business, on technology, and this new stuff, and self-development, all of this stuff. And continuous learning, and so building relationships with people, because that's what the teaching part and the DJ part did.
So you're evolving. Right? You're evolving.
I'm a continuously evolving creature, right? And continuously learning. And so that foundation, that's kind of what it built. And what I learned very, very early on is that this whole big thing of trust, and people trust the tech guy over the sales guy, right? Mm-hmm. And I started out massively shy. I mean, I used to sit behind my father's coattails and always have a book everywhere, and I was massively shy. But I learned that, dude, you need to start to talk. You need to start to, So in all of those
and a lot of those tech guys or directors really, I mean, they do say generally are more like introverts, and they don't really want to go to a business meeting or a lunch or anything. Yeah.
So while at Innovative Systems, that is, I attended a seminar in Florida, and tech seminar. Every year, went and brushed up our skills and all. And somehow this whole concept of selling and management, and I think the words that the guy used were something around the guy who uses his brains is going to make more money and move faster than the guy who uses his hands only, right? And somehow I made a pivot. We didn't use the word pivot at the time, but I made a switch. I made a switch. I said, you know what? I need to actually start doing more of this brain thing. And so at that point in time, way early this Innovative Systems days, I decided I need to move over from just being this technician. Because when I joined Innovative Systems, I was employee number one. It was Stephen Chang, Lisa Chang, and then me.
Right.
And so I was doing everything. I was installing the networks, doing all the work.
What type of timeline is this in your career line? Is this like early 2000s?
This is no. Innovative Systems, joined Innovative Systems back in 1988. Hurricane Gilbert. That's the marker.
88.
88. That's the marker. I joined. Hurricane Gilbert happened. Nothing going on. I ended up at this conference.
So just building up.
Building and learning. Building the foundation. As I said, Teddy was a customer of mine from then. Did some work for him, so knew him from then.
And it's amazing because that relationship from say 88 or early 90s then transforms now into 06 Ttech.
Hence why I jumped back to build that whole conversation around trust and trust building, because I did technical work for him at the time, and from then to these people. So fast forward, came back, started Innovative Corporate, did Innovative Corporate 9 years, decided to sell my interest to my business partner, and then I got a call one day, because it was made public that I was leaving Innovative Corporate, and then Ted called me and said, "Hey Chris, I hear you're not Innovative anymore. What are you doing?" I said, drinking wine.
So Teddy's like, "I know a guy." Chris, I hear you're available.
I hear you're available. And so he called me up, came to visit me, sat down and had a discussion, and here I am.
And that's the way most business tends to work, eh? I mean, when you hear some of these great stories, just, I know a guy, you're available, and, it's over, like a deal just happens quickly. Deals that take too long tend to be bad deals, but as you said, it's just boom, you get your deal done. So being the accidental entrepreneur, I'd actually started another business, while at Innovative Corporate. I started a wine business because, so what happened, remember, I always have these hobbies. And so I moved from the hobby of being a sound system DJ. You always want to be on the go, or?
I kind of, lifelong learning, living in Florida, all my friends are drinking wine. I don't know nothing about wine. And so I said, let me find a wine course. So I went to Johnson & Wales University. They had this fantastic course there. Did some certification around becoming a sommelier. Did all of that fun at the night.
Okay.
And then, so, all of that stuff builds on that whole relationship situation where you're now, because I'm a teacher, I come back to Jamaica, nobody's talking about wine, I start talking about wine.
Yes.
And so in all of that, I started this wine bar. So me and some friends started this wine bar, So when I exited Innovative Corp.
And funny enough, I'm sure now, I guess in hindsight, corporate clients enjoy wine.
Oh,
so
of course.
It's a win-win. Yeah.
Of course. Interestingly, no bank was giving you any money to buy wine, so you had to buy a wine bar, build a wine bar. But they use it a lot. And they have a lot of events there. Find it kind of strange. Maybe you can help them shine the light. So when I'm ready to start my second venture around wine, then maybe we can get some help. But yeah, so that, Teddy called me up, had a sit down. He had started this business. Interestingly enough, when he had started it, or when he was about to start it, we did have a conversation at the time. Me and Neil Abrams had just started Innovative Corporate Solutions, and he came to us and said, hey, opportunity presents itself, and he was just trying to find out what were possible partners that he could have, and it wasn't to me at the time, but it was always, I guess, so in both of our minds. Because he was just doing something that we weren't doing. We were selling equipment. We were VAR. That's what Innovative Corporate did. Value-added reseller, had the big brands, represented IBM and Lenovo and Microsoft, and all the big brands were out there growing. And he was just service only. And so at the time, we kind of, we didn't get it.
So in a way, Ttech really has been kind of, the gelling of your vision, like really what you want to do.
That's an interesting way to put it.
From the whole kind of learning curve and life learning curve, career learning curve.
That's an interesting way to put it.
And kind of the right partnership for you, the right deal for you.
Yes. I guess that's a good way to put it.
So you fell into the right accidental entrepreneurship with Ttech now.
Well, look, I don't know if you've ever read this book by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist.
Okay.
When you have some dream and vision down there, the universe conspires to help you, right? And so sometimes these things happen to me. You kind of sit on and say, what just happened? Everything just kind of lined up.
The stars are aligned with Ttech.
The stars are aligning.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what happened.
So what happened now, Chris, is so you strike this deal. You and Teddy get going 2006, let's say 2007.
No. 2006. Teddy already started the company. Remember, I'm still with Innovative Corp at the time.
Okay.
That phone call didn't happen until I left Innovative Corp at around 2012, 2013 maybe.
So let's say 2012 then. What capacity are you joining in around that time? You're CEO now, but you're,
right. So
you're joining back then in what, like a director capacity?
Yeah, well, at the time we weren't public, I wasn't all of that, so I was just joining as a director because I was buying interest in the business. It wasn't, a friend and
you came in as a shareholder.
I came in as a shareholder,
right?
And so, as an executive director, my responsibilities were for sales and marketing at the time.
Fantastic. Yeah. And CEO now, when you jump into the driver's seat, that was roughly what year?
That was, I think, 2018, I think.
Fantastic,
yes.
Yeah. And public?
And public, the public wasn't 2018. Yeah, it's 2018. Yeah, public was 2015 or 2016. Yeah, 2016. So January 2016.
So you're kind of, okay, so 6 years on exchange, 15-year anniversary. You're still a young company overall.
Very young company, bumping in the dark, making a few mistakes, learning from those mistakes, about to take it to the next level again.
We're going to come back to that topic. It's good stuff, Chris. We take another break on Business Dive Extra. More when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. For the year ended December 31st, 2021, Ttech recorded revenue from contracts with customers of $392.1 million, an increase of $32.7 million from Jamaican $359.4 million for the year before 2020. Net profit for year end 2021 was $8.2 million, $14.2 million lower than year-end 2020. Now, admin expenses had increased in 2021 at Ttech by approximately $23 million as the company increased its talent, team complement, and one-off projects. Ttech recently reported its first quarter ended March 31st, 2022, and revenue improved to $97.9 million with gross profit of Jamaican $60.5 million. The company recorded a net loss for the quarter of $4.8 million due to continued global supply chain issues, and given this issue, the inability to complete projects during the quarter. To close the quarter, Ttech's cash and cash equivalents and investments remain very strong, totaling $72 million, with shareholders' equity at $236.9 million Jamaican dollars. Still with us is Christopher Reckord, CEO of Ttech Limited. Chris, welcome back to Business Dive Extra.
Thank you, sir.
The market cap of the company, 300 million and change, stock price right now, on or about $3. I know, of course, with JSE rules, etc., you can't really comment on an opinion. I mean, as a company, do you do kind of investor briefings now, or any investor relations, or just primarily, annual general meetings? Just
AGMs and the quarterly releases. No investor. We did in the beginning, when we were advised it was the right thing to do. But as a junior market company, we kind of looked around and realized, but what are junior market companies doing this? Why are we, this extra expense here? But we try our very best to communicate on, with PR and all of that as to what we're doing, what we're doing on the market.
Right. And how much, just looking at the results, your top line has been growing fairly well. You had a net loss. How much has that kind of global supply chain and logistics? We've seen that with a couple of the junior companies, even main market companies. But how much really has that kind of shipping issues or, other supply chain issues, impacted the results?
So what you realized and mentioned in the intro a while ago was that we've started doing a lot more, one-time projects. Mm-hmm. And again, that's listening to the customers. As we acquire more customers, customers are asking us to saying, hey, guys, if you say you're our outsourced IT department, if I had my IT department, we'd be doing this, and this for us.
Right.
I know you've been doing the managed services stuff great. You've been monitoring. You've been keeping us alert. You have all of that kind of stuff. But can you just come in and do these projects? Can you change out all our switches and routers for us? Because what we used to do is this.
Okay.
We used to, again, act like an administrator for IT for the organization.
Yes.
So if we realized a project needed to be done, we put together the requirements, we gave it to them, or we went to the market and said, hey, my Croskery is limited, needs to change out 10 routers and 15 servers. Here's the specs. give us a proposal. And then we got the proposal handed to you and say, you make a decision. We don't want to be in that.
Gotcha.
We're the guys, or we may recommend, depending. Some people, they want to make the decision. Some people just say,
you want to make it as transparent as possible.
We are the service providers.
Yes.
That's what we do. And then they make the decision, and then they order the products. And then when the products eventually come, so we're not getting cost in the late products, when the products eventually come, then we are called in, we implement. That's what we used to do.
Right.
Over the last 2-3 years, our customers have kind of said, guys, I don't want to do this step anymore.
We want a one-stop shop.
They want a one-stop shop.
Yeah.
And so, we've got some questions. Guys, the cost of goods going up. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And, I have to be answering. I'm like, the customers are asking us to do this,
It's like, they want you to hold a price and stuff like that.
Yeah. So our customers are asking us to do this, so we've started doing it. So our one-time projects have increased. Yes, it has bumped revenue.
And Chris, just give us an example. I mean, of course, we understand typically in like construction business and stuff, but when you say like a one-time project, it's like getting a nice, call it juicy contract from
give an example.
a large financial firm or non-financial firm.
Right. So here's an example. We're in an organization managing their current environment. So we manage the servers and the switches and the routers. We manage the infrastructure to keep the lights on. We're to keep the lights on people. We're like the IT version of JPS, right?
Okay.
Company says, by the way, guys, you guys are PBXs, our phone system's not working. And they were like, yeah, we do PBXs.
Okay.
So they said, okay, well, can you come in and replace the PBX for us? They have 50 extensions or 100 extensions. We quote them on the phones, we quote them on the PBX, we quote them on installation, and then we do the work. That's a one-time project, right? Now, in some smaller organizations, they say to us, you know what? I can't afford this. Could you convert this into a monthly payment on my behalf? So I said, okay, you still have to buy the phones. So we sell them the phones, and then we provide the PBX with a physical box or a cloud PBX, and then we say, pay us on a monthly basis.
You kind of take on that kind of financing or factoring or something like that.
For smaller customers, we don't do it for certain sizes. So those are some of the one-time projects. So that now we've converted a one-time project into a monthly recurring revenue.
Okay.
Right. But mainly the projects are again a situation. Hey Chris, you guys are managing our network and stuff for us. Usually we go out and buy these things from such and such and such. You have recommended to us because we have quarterly business reviews with the customer to explain to them, here's everything that we did for you over the last quarter or over the last year, whatever it is. We find that these bits of equipment are aging, you need to replace them. They'll say to us, can you just come in and replace all of that for us as a project?
Right.
And so we'll do that. Now, in the States, some organizations do what you call hardware as a service. In other words, instead of selling them the hardware and it's a one-time project, we now finance the hardware.
Understood.
1 or 2 people have asked us to do it for them.
And are you doing that yet at this time, or you kind of refer the finance into a different institution?
We initially started referring the finance, and if it's small enough, we may take it on. So like some small PBXs.
Right.
But for the most part, we refer the finance in, and then we
And do you find sometimes when you do that, it creates like I don't know, sometimes it's just like, I guess, car finances. Sometimes it works well, and the financing company like it's seamless, and then other times the financing company drops the ball. How are you finding it with your customer relations?
So far, it's been good because we do so little of it, and it's very meticulous, and we make sure that there's a proper match.
Okay.
Because it's not every project that we think that we should take on.
Yeah.
And yes, I mentioned mistakes earlier. You take on something that sounded good initially, and then once you're in there, management change, leadership change, the tech guy changes, so the person who you went into the deal with is not the same person, and the screws start to tighten on certain things, and then sometimes we drop the ball. Sometimes the team members probably promised to be there at a certain time, not there, promised to do certain things, it didn't happen till late, and so you get wrapped over the knuckles.
And what's the size of the Ttech team right now, full-time, part-time? Like what's your staff complement?
Well, total staff complement right now today, it's approximately, I would say 48, 49.
Okay.
And that's all in.
Yeah,
we do have contractors that we pull in on projects. So for example, if I'm doing that PBX project or something like that, I don't have in-house cabling people. Yeah. We have about 3 or 4 contractors that will, so I don't count them.
And are you covering island-wide? If you had a job in, I don't know, Mandeville or Montego Bay, you will take it on?
Correct. So we do have subcontractor arrangements in different areas because we do have contractual arrangements to cover some organizations, and they have their operations island-wide, and they have their operations globally. Okay. So we do have customers with operations in the UK, in Canada, in North America, multiple states, and in some Caribbean islands and in Africa. So,
and is there any part of the market you find like you're really focused on? Like, you know, is it like tourism or BPOs or kind of financial services, or are you pretty kind of spread out?
we kind of spread out, but we did a little bit of analysis recently, and we're realizing that, of course, financial services there, of course, one of our largest organizations. Ttech practically got started out of the GK IT department, and we're a separate company. And lots of people think that GK owns Ttech. No, we're a separate company. And so, food distribution and all the various related companies connected under the GK food distribution line are our customers. But when we did an analysis recently, we did have a fair amount of financial services, and then there is, funny enough, car dealers. We have a small subset of car dealers, and then there's. Yeah, I think that's it.
Is there anything new, or is there anything that you're really seeing is propelling revenue growth? Like, is it a new sector, an existing sector that, I don't know, even throughout COVID, you're seeing some above average, top-end growth contributing to Ttech?
Not from any industry segment, but maybe from technology. So information security, IT security, cybersecurity has been growing tremendously. Tons of folks coming to us for. If I was to, now as I'm saying it, we've been getting a lot more requests from government. And we're actually doing a lot more work with government.
Public sector as a whole.
So public sector, there's been, because...
And you said there's an opportunity going forward.
Huge opportunity going forward. In terms of public sector, but with our focus strictly on providing security services.
Security services.
Yeah.
And, on that point, your annual report, Chris, your website lays out your services, fantastic. But what's like your bread and butter business? Like, what's your oil change business at the end of the day? Persons always just think, okay, it's help desk, or it's like, as you said, IT managed services.
Right.
But is there something in your wheelhouse that, this is what persons really come to Ttech for? Has it changed over the years, or is it just, this is the Ttech way?
It's mostly the same from the beginning. It's just general managed services. So in the beginning, we might have called it infrastructure management, because infrastructure really and truly just meant your server and your network and infrastructure. And then, when I joined, and I look globally when I'm getting involved with stuff. So when I joined the organization, we didn't use the term managed services, but that's what we were. So, joined a peer group in North America, been looking at what they're doing, benchmarking some stuff for them, and saying, guys, look, we're MSP. That's what they call it in North America. Are we using that word in Jamaica? I see more and more people, whether they're copying us or not, I'm not sure. But or they're just recognizing what the industry, what the global market is saying. So the bread and butter, to answer the question specifically, is still just managed services. No, there are some managed services with help desk bolted on and some without. So if we go into an organization and they have, an IT person in there, that person is the one running around handling help desk, then we don't bolt on help desk. We say, you have help desk, so we call it a co-managed service for that specific situation. That person internally is handling help desk. We are doing everything else for them. So we become the SWAT team. We become the support and backup for that internal IT guy. So our job is to make that person look good, and of course make their boss and the leadership of the company look good.
And the key is, as you said, it's like the head of IT in a company, and you forge this relationship.
Correct. Gotcha. So we have that with several organizations. Where literally we're the only IT department that the company has. And we're on the outside. Depending on the size of the organization, I may put one or two persons sitting in the company. So my help, they're sitting in there. They're logoed, with my logo.
So you do that. You can put people inside the company as well.
Correct. Depending on the size. Over a certain size, yes. Below a certain size, everything is remote. We have a bunch of tools that that monitors the network, monitors all the various things that we're contractually there to monitor, remote RMM, remote monitoring and management tools that we're able to do stuff on the people's servers and network equipment and all of that.
That's great. Yeah. We're going to come back to that. Great point, Chris. We take another break on Business Live Extra. More with Chris Reckord on the future of Ttech when we return. Welcome back to Business Dive Extra. Cybersecurity, data security, and IT security are currently relevant and very hot topics in Jamaica, regionally and globally. We find out how Ttech is playing a role in this space and the upside for their respective shareholders. Ttech has a scalable business model given that it is in technology. Does Ttech have plans to scale, execute acquisitions, and consolidate the IT managed space or related IT space in Jamaica and/or the Caribbean? Ttech's current market capitalization is approximately Jamaican 300 million, one of the lower ranges on the JSE Jamaica Stock Exchange. We speak to Christopher Reckord for a final time about his 3 to 5 year outlook for Ttech. Chris, welcome back to BLE Business Dive Extra.
Thank you.
It's been great having you and just hearing about your personal story, the Ttech story, and just thinking about Ttech. As Warren Buffett says, Berkshire Hathaway, Charlie Munger, and Mr. Market. The market just seems like it really wants Ttech to be a little bit more aggressive, or even moderately aggressive. Maybe do some deals, something like that. Seems to be a lot of money out there, liquidity in the market. How do you feel about your disposition to it, maybe the board of directors, Teddy Alexander's disposition, maybe towards doing some M&A, some deals, just given where the company's market cap is, you're trading at about 75% of sales as well. How do you feel about that, whether it's this year or next year, and just maybe taking advantage and, spicing things up a bit, as they say?
So, Mark, the short answer is this. We're very, very open to it, and I'm having discussions.
Okay.
I'm actually having discussions with folks. Initial discussions are usually around partnership first. I guess you have to kind of dance before you're going to,
yes,
get engaged or anything like that. So there's lots of discussions around partnerships to help in areas that we're not super strong in, and then there are partnerships for us to help other people who are not super strong in certain areas that they need. So those discussions are taking place. What's interesting is that at the beginning of the whole pandemic situation, in January of 2020, I was in Guyana,
okay,
meeting with a number of folks down there around us potentially, sticking our toes in that market, and then COVID came in March, and that just all those discussions just died.
Okay.
One or two of the companies kind of went away, they disappeared. So we're still having discussions with a few other players. I just recently had a discussion with someone out of Trinidad who they provide some services that we don't offer, and then vice versa. And so, the initial discussion is, hey, let's partner.
And so on that point, are you seeing some, call it like for like, or similar businesses to Ttech, as you travel or throughout the Caribbean?
Oh, definitely.
Are there very similar type of companies out there?
Definitely. A fair amount of people are seeing the light in this, what they call managed service space, because they've been used to selling products and seeing that big number. It's very difficult to move from a value-added reseller systems integrator to managed services where it's,
okay,
where it's just service. It's you have to coordinate it very well. We started, I use the term initially, a pure play MSP, so it's relatively easy for us to switch the other way, for us to start selling equipment.
Right.
Now, we're kind of also looking at a different angle. So that peer group that I mentioned earlier, where we sit with, maybe 300 people like ourselves, 2 times, 3 times a year.
Right.
They're looking to us and saying, hey, Ttech guys, you guys have expertise in these areas and these areas. Could you help us? And we're like, sure. So we're here in Jamaica, and we're
yes,
dabbling right now, and we're helping some folks who are as similar to the question you asked, people in the Caribbean. They're people identical to what we do in North America and in Canada that need a little help. And so I've been trying to figure out how those things work, and we've started helping.
And is there any other publicly traded company similar to Ttech in, say, the Bayesian markets or the Trinidadian markets, or
not that I've seen yet.
So are they mostly family enterprises,
Correct.
private
Correct.
companies?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And we've had some discussions with folks. We've looked at some things. Some things are not a fit, so we kind of walk away and say no.
Right.
So we're looking.
Yeah.
We're looking. Interesting with Jamaica, though, we're talking to certain folks. You make calls to people that and saying, hey, look, you've been on the market doing this, I see you doing this. You have a discussion about something potential. And I don't know, you're on the ground, you're in the industry, but we don't seem to be a company that likes for people to buy our companies. I don't know. The few people that I've spoken to, it's approached with some sort of a trepidation, some sort of a doubt. No, I started this business, I want to keep growing it myself. That's what I've seen with some people.
I was going to ask you that question. So in the Jamaica landscape now, do you find the IT managed space is is very competitive, or are there a few other big players, or do you find like it just kind of drops and there's a lot of maybe micro players? You know, although the information is private, that there are a lot of micro players doing maybe under 100 million revenue, or do you find there's a few kind of, you know, rivals out there, or large players trying to kind of grow and get to the Ttech revenue scale?
I think almost everything is said a while ago. There's a component of it. For me to say what sizes are those areas, I'm not sure right now. But we've had the traditional big players. The traditional big players is IBMs of the world and Fujitsu. There's some kind of,
so it's like a Fujitsu in Jamaica.
They're regional, and so they've been doing that stuff. Have they been doing some version of managed services their entire life? Yes. They've called it other things. IT outsourcing.
Do we still have IBM in Jamaica?
Yes. IBM's been doing IT outsourcing for decades, right?
Okay.
So those traditional big players are there. New competitors coming in the market now are the telcos, right? So the telcos, yes, they have lots of relationships at all sizes of the market. So they have kind of said, okay, well, we're getting, subscription revenue or recurring revenue from these areas. Why can't we add more stuff? So the major telcos are in fact adding what they call it,
and business systems. And when you say major, like, it's like a digital
and a flow. Right, exactly,
really?
Exactly.
Okay.
So
where they want to help their B2B clients.
Correct. Correct. Right,
interesting.
Correct.
Okay.
So they're adding that, and of course there's a situation in the government. The government itself has its own, let's call it, IT company, eGov, that's doing some stuff. But it's focused on helping internal organizations initially because it was used to be called fiscal services. So Ministry of Finance and their applications around collecting taxes and around services to the market. But so in terms of the other part of the segment of the market, as you mentioned, what we have seen is a fair amount, especially since what happened during the last 2 years of the pandemic. A fair amount of IT folks have left internally in IT companies and they've started their own little thing. So there's a lot of those small players out there. Are they competition to us? Yes, because you go to, let's say one of my target audiences, anywhere between, let's say 50 to 150 users, or that's it. They have this one guy, yeah, man, we're cool, man, we have a guy, and you kind of say, well, okay, but...
And that could be a sole trader, it could be a LLC, it could be anything, but
correct.
As long as they're getting it done, they kind of feel...
They kind of feel comfortable.
Okay.
Kind of feel. So we see that in the market, it's there. Are we trying to talk to some of these people for partnership? Of course. And some of them work with us. Some of them come and say, look, help me in that area because we may understand cybersecurity as, because we have a bigger, growing cybersecurity team.
And at that point, so Chris, data security, cybersecurity, we mean, of course, it's like public information, what's happening with the banks, and every week it seems like it's another issue with the banks and fraud and other issues and cybersecurity. But how, and we see all the conferences, like, all of our social media is another data conference.
Correct.
But how big is that market potentially? And we know culturally in Jamaica, we hate paying fees.
Correct.
Especially even big business doesn't like to pay fees. So I mean, while we know the market is real, is it translating to potential revenue yet for Ttech? This whole data security and, talk of you need a chief data officer in your office, and cybersecurity, like what is really happening there, just in a nutshell?
So in a nutshell, the umbrella area, one may say it, whether it's is risk management, or some say, well, okay, in my area, it's IT security, and all the IT security is an umbrella of cybersecurity and all these various things. So the end of the day is this. There's a massive upside. I mean, globally, it's been recognized over the last 2 years that, COVID has exponentially seen an increase in cyber attacks of all various sizes. I'm not going to get into talking about malware and business email compromise and all these things now, but it's huge, and it's huge here in Jamaica, and nobody's talking about it. We see and hear the few big ones. Has it translated to the revenues for us? Of course.
We are in the midst of... You are getting some revenue.
We are getting revenues, growing revenues. I mean, this last week alone, I was busy. I was on the road every single day doing presentations for management teams.
That's what I was going to ask. Are you having to educate board of directors, management teams?
You have to. And I was, and I got a request for proposals. And in one meeting just yesterday, I mean, just this week alone, was a confirmation. Did a presentation, gave a high-level number. The C-level just said, Chris, let's start that next week.
And I always have this curious question, Chris, but it's an opportunity for Ttech.
Yes.
I've always found boards, especially in the Caribbean, not limited to Jamaica, lots of doctors, lawyers, financial experts, but typically no technology, no IT on the board.
Correct.
When you look across board,
Correct.
what has that just been a symptom of things, other things, other reasons? But it's an opportunity for Ttech.
Huge opportunity in my various speaking engagements, with regards to whichever organization I'm speaking with. We've been asking people to add somebody to your, executive or leadership with respect to digital or IT. We're talking about digital transformation. I haven't even started talking about that yet. But a huge opportunity because every business right now, all of them saw what happened during the pandemic. The people who are digitally ready were a lot further ahead in their, in their business success over those 2 years than the other people who had to be scrambling. And so, huge opportunity around digital transformation. One of the things I tell people, Ttech is a digital transformation enabler, a digital translation accelerator. Why? What we do, what I explained in the first segment, we come in, we take over the mundane management and all the stuff that people have to do routine day in, day out, because we have tools and technologies and processes to do that, freeing up the internal IT team who understands the business to help take your business now up the digital maturity ladder. That's what we've been telling people. Let's take care of that stuff. But we have a situation in Jamaica where the IT, too many of the IT folks, to a man that has a hammer, everything is a nail. So to the IT folks, what happens is that everything has become an IT problem. Why so many digital transformation projects fail and a lot of the big digital opportunities out there is that we think it's an IT problem and it's not.
And so you see that and the cybersecurity, huge growth.
So digital transformation, cybersecurity,
3 to 5 year growth curve for Ttech.
Even shorter, but yes, huge. I mean, cybersecurity right now.
For the revenue and the earnings.
That's correct.
Love it. Chris, thanks for joining us. You're clearly taking Ttech to higher heights and for the revenue to come and for the earnings to come and looking forward to some investor briefings. It's great having you on Business Live Extra.
Thank you very much, Mark.
Thanks for joining us again.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks.
Grateful to be here.
That's it for another edition of Business Live Extra. Remember, the science of today is the technology of tomorrow.